Quantitative research focuses on numerical data, measurement, and statistical relationships between variables. It is designed to examine patterns across larger groups and determine what is happening, how much it is happening, and whether certain factors are related to each other. Qualitative research focuses on understanding experiences, meanings, and explanations behind human behavior. Instead of measuring numbers, it explores how people describe their thoughts, feelings, and experiences in specific situations. A simple way to remember the difference is that quantitative research measures the size or frequency of something. Size means how much or how many. Frequency means how often something happens. While qualitative research explains the reasons and experiences behind it, a quantitative study can find that 60% of nurses experience workplace stress and that stressful events occur several times per week. A qualitative study can interview nurses to understand why they feel stressed, such as heavy workload, emotional pressure, long working hours, or lack of support. Selecting the right research approach for a thesis topic. Choosing a research method depends on the research question, purpose, and type of evidence needed. The method should not be selected because it seems easier, it should match what the study is trying to discover. A topic usually requires quantitative research when it focuses on measuring variables, testing relationships, comparing groups, or making predictions. For example, a topic like the relationship between sleep duration and academic performance among college students is quantitative because the researcher can measure sleep hours and GPA, then test whether these variables are related using correlation analysis. A topic also points toward quantitative research when it compares differences between groups. For example, comparing stress levels between remote and in-person employees requires measuring stress scores from two groups and analyzing whether there is a significant difference using an independent samples t-test. Quantitative research is also used when a study aims to predict outcomes. Words such as predict, influence, effect, impact, and relationship often indicate a quantitative design. For example, does exercise frequency predict blood pressure levels in adults? Focuses on whether one variable can predict changes in another variable using regression analysis. On the other hand, qualitative research is selected when the purpose is to understand experiences, perceptions, behaviors, or meanings. Topics often include words such as experience, explore, describe, understand, or perception. For example, exploring how first-year teachers experience classroom challenges focuses on personal experiences rather than measuring scores or relationships between variables. A simple way to identify the method is to look at the goal of the topic. If the study asks how many, how much, how often, whether variables are related, or whether one factor predicts another, it usually requires quantitative research. If the study asks how people experience something, why something happens, or what meanings people attach to an experience, it usually requires qualitative research. How qualitative and quantitative research approach samples and populations. Qualitative research focuses on gaining a deep understanding of a specific phenomenon rather than representing a large population. It usually uses a small sample size because researchers collect detailed information from each participant. The sample is selected based on the participant's ability to provide meaningful insights about the research topic. Quantitative research focuses on generalization. It usually starts with a research hypothesis, which predicts a possible relationship between variables. Researchers collect numerical data from a larger sample and use statistical analysis to test whether the hypothesis is supported. The sample is often selected to represent a larger population, allowing researchers to make conclusions about broader groups. Differences in data collection methods. The way researchers collect data is one of the clearest differences between the two approaches. Qualitative researchers ask open-ended questions that allow participants to explain their perspectives. For example, a researcher studying workplace burnout can ask employees, "Can you describe your experience dealing with stress at work?" The answer can include personal experiences, emotions, and examples that help explain the issue. Common qualitative data collection methods include semi-structured interviews, guided questions with flexible responses, unstructured interviews, open conversations, focus groups, group discussions to explore shared views, participant observation, studying behaviors in natural settings, case studies, detailed investigation of a specific person, group, or situation, document analysis, examining written records or texts, and content analysis, analyzing patterns in written or recorded information. Quantitative researchers collect structured information that can be converted into numbers. For example, a researcher studying workplace burnout can use a standardized burnout questionnaire where employees rate their stress level from 1 to 5. This approach allows researchers to compare responses across large groups and identify statistical patterns. Common quantitative data collection methods include surveys and questionnaires, collecting standardized responses from participants, experiments, testing cause and effect relationships under controlled conditions, tests and assessments, measuring skills, knowledge, or characteristics, scales and inventories, measuring attitudes, behaviors, or psychological traits, and secondary data analysis. Using current datasets, reports, or databases, approaches used to analyze collected qualitative data. After collecting data, qualitative researchers organize and interpret the information to identify meanings and patterns. Common qualitative data analysis methods include thematic analysis, identifies recurring themes. Content analysis, categorizes words, concepts, or ideas. Narrative analysis, examines personal stories and experiences. Discourse analysis, studies how language is used in different social contexts. Framework analysis, organizes collected data into predefined categories. And grounded theory analysis, develops a theory directly from the collected data. Approaches used to analyze collected quantitative data. After collecting numerical data, quantitative researchers apply statistical methods. To answer the research question, common quantitative data analysis methods include descriptive statistics, correlation analysis, regression analysis, independent samples t-test, paired samples t-test, one-way ANOVA, chi-square test, and factor analysis. You can watch the videos linked in the description to learn more about these data analysis methods. Common software used for quantitative analysis includes SPSS, R, SAS, Stata, and Microsoft Excel. Understanding research results and findings. The type of findings produced by qualitative and quantitative research is different. Qualitative research produces explanations, themes, and interpretations. For example, a qualitative study on remote work can identify themes such as isolation, communication difficulties, and improved work flexibility. Quantitative research produces numerical findings that show differences, relationships, and measurable outcomes. For example, a quantitative study can show that employees working remotely report a 20% increase in job satisfaction compared with employees working only in offices, making the final decision for your research design. Selecting qualitative or quantitative research should be based on the purpose of the study. Neither method is better than the other, each provides different types of knowledge.